Part 41. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 401. Back at Juhua Palace, Chu Qing Huang pointed at the bed, "Lie over and take off your clothes." Fukang's face turned red and he wanted to escape from this place countless times, but he couldn't bear the rare opportunity to meet his master. He would never have imagined that such an embarrassing thing would happen on the first night he met his master. He didn't know how to place his hands and feet. "Didn't you hear what I said?" Chu Qing Huang looked at him calmly, "Want to resist the decree?" Fukang's expression changed. "I don't dare." "Why didn't I see that you were afraid?" Fukang pursed his lips, endured the heat on his face, and walked slowly towards the bed in the inner hall. Halfway there, he suddenly turned around and looked at Chu Qing Huang pitifully, trying to make a final death struggle. Only the emperor can sleep on the dragon bed, and his subordinates dare not violate the rules. "I am the emperor, so I can do whatever I say," Chu Qing Huang said in a domineering tone. "Do you have any objections?" "Don't dare to have an opinion." Fukang finally gave up and resigned himself to his fate, walked over and lay down on the bed, burying his head in the pillow like an ostrich. Chu Qing Huang almost couldn't help laughing. It stands to reason that this guy has been out for more than half a year, and he has gained a lot of experience by following his father. So many masters on Kangyun Mountain have fought against him. Since his father allowed him to come out and complete the mission this time, it shows that he has a general understanding of the situation in various countries, and even understands the essence of soldiers' deceitful ways. How come he is still so innocent now? Chu Qing Huang restrained her expression and walked slowly over. Her walking voice was not loud, but it seemed that every step she took was stepping on the heart of a certain young man. "Do you want to suffocate yourself to death?" Chu Qing Huang stood in front of the bed, looking at someone who didn't dare to raise his head. His tone was calm and full of majesty. "How can you sleep with someone so timid and shy in the future? Go to bed." Fukang's spirit perked up and he raised his head instantly. "I can do it, my subordinate." "What can you do?" Chu Qing Huang's eyes were deep. "Do you know what is going on in bed?" Fukang was silent for a moment. "Why don't you take off your clothes?" Chu Qing Huang's voice was indifferent. "A man should stand upright, but he is always so shy, like an innocent little daughter-in-law. How can he sleep with her in the future?" Fu Xiang's roots flushed. "I can learn from this." "How to learn?" Fukang. The air seemed to be still for a moment, and Fukang was tangled in his heart. He was both looking forward to it and feeling an inexplicable uneasiness. Skin-to-skin intimacy is an irresistible temptation for every couple who likes each other, but the gap in status and the psychological mentality of always looking up to him make him always regard his master as a god, so that he will feel guilty about blasphemy every time. "Need me to help you?" Fukang came to his senses and shook his head quickly. "I don't dare." With that said, with a determination to die early and be reborn, he quickly took off his pants, lay down on the bed again, closed his eyes and pretended to be dead. It was obviously the hot summer, but he always felt a chill. "It's so miserable." Chu Qing Huang looked at the scars on his fair buttocks and thighs. "After these days, the swelling has long disappeared, but the bruises are still clearly visible. Does it hurt?" Fukang replied in a muffled voice, "It's okay." It did hurt when he was beaten, but he could bear it. Chu Qing Huang stretched out her fingers and poked the tip of his buttocks. It was full of elasticity and said, "This buttocks is quite nice." Fukang's face turned red, and the numbness made him uneasy. He felt that his face was burning, as if all the blood in his body had rushed to his face. The master is teasing him. Strong and elastic, it feels good to the touch. Chu Qing Huang felt that it was not enough, so she simply rubbed it hard and then patted it. "Tisk, you are so good." Fukang tilted his head, his face turned red, and he looked a little more coquettish for no reason. "Have you checked, master?" "Not yet." Chu Qing Huang sat down on the edge of the bed. What? Are you not willing to let me check you? I don't dare, Fukang explained, I just want to serve my master well. Instead of being teased by the master like this. Do I need to give you medicine? Chu Qinghuang lightly traced the bruises with her fingers, knowing that after these days, there is no need to give you medicine. How about I wait for you tonight? The slender fingertips seemed to have magic power. Goosebumps flew everywhere they touched, and Fukang's body couldn't help but start to tremble. No. No need, I don't dare. He was worried that he was powerless and that his master was too good at bullying. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 402. Chu Qinghuang used to think that she was rational, calm and restrained, and would not offend others unless they offended her. Even when it came to fighting for the throne, she almost never took the initiative to deal with others. She always waited for others to take action first, and then punished her. Fight back. However, only then did she realize that she actually had a bad side in her heart, and bullying seemed to be an addictive thing. In particular, she had the impression that this shadow guard was once a cold and aloof man who would rather die than give in. The sharp contrast with his shy and innocent appearance now made her even more horny. Chu Qinghuang thought, anyway, the two of them don't have a formal relationship yet, and it's too early to officially start sex. There's nothing wrong with asking for a little sweetness in advance. Anyway, this little shadow guard belongs to her from body to heart, and she can do it with her as she wants. Thinking about it this way, it seems that he has the potential to become a tyrant, and he is also a bad tyrant. Chu Qinghuang briefly reflected in her heart, her eyes fell on Fukang's face, and she felt that she couldn't bully him too hard all at once. After all, it was rare for the two of them to meet, so they should do something more meaningful. So Chu Qinghuang let her go for the time being, turned around and walked out, waiter in the bath. It took Fukang a moment to react, and he quickly put on his clothes and followed. The heat on his face gradually subsided, but there was still a bit of blush left on his ears. For the current relationship between the two of them, taking a bath is definitely a torturous process. Fortunately, Chu Qinghuang didn't intend to really torment him so much that he couldn't stop it. She didn't mess around during the bath, but even if she behaved herself, she couldn't stop him. Someone was having wild thoughts, and his face turned red again and again. Chu Qinghuang just pretended not to see it. After the bath, Fukang took a robe and put it on her. Chu Qinghuang opened his arms and said, "Take me back." Fukang obeyed the order obediently, not knowing where to look with both eyes. This face is so beautiful. The more I look at it, the more I like it. Chu Qinghuang leaned on his shoulder and reached out to touch his face and chin. Her tone was full of teasing, "I really want to eat you alive." Fukang stumbled and fell directly onto the bed with her, face to face, lips to lips. Time stands still at this moment. Fukang's body stiffened, and there was a look of panic in his eyes. The soft body of the woman under him made him nervous, and there was an indescribable greed. What frightened him even more was that things seemed to be out of his control. The softness and fragrance of the woman came straight towards him, making him unable to resist. Fukang was so stiff that he didn't know what to do. Subordinate, no, it's not intentional. Chu Qinghuang remained silent. It wasn't that she didn't want to talk, but she realized that she seemed to be overplaying her hand. The shadow guard, who was supposed to be ruthless and desireless, had already been provoked into reacting by her. Fukang's eyes gradually turned red, but his face turned a little pale. He didn't know how to deal with this situation at all. He froze for a while, then suddenly got up and rushed away, so fast that Chu Qinghuang couldn't even call him. Chu Qinghuang raised his eyebrows, slowly stood up and leaned against the bed, thoughtfully. Okay, she took it a little too far. The shadow guard has been trained for many years, and is very unfamiliar with the relationship between men and women. he even has a superficial understanding of it. Moreover, because he has received harsh and inhumane training in restraining emotions and desires, he is actually very unfamiliar with this situation. Maybe he should be compensated a little. Chu Qing Huang thought about it, and couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth a little more, but it was really interesting. She never knew that the feeling of bullying others could be so wonderful. After a cup of tea, Fukang came back. The handsome boy stood helplessly in front of the bed, his eyes red like a rabbit. Chu Qing Huang was so soft-hearted. "Take a cold shower." Fukang pursed his lips and nodded. "Not allowed next time." Chu Qing Huang patted the bed. "Go to sleep." Fukang hummed, took off his shoes and went to bed without saying a word, and lay down silently on the bed, feeling extremely ashamed of his reaction just now. Ahem. Chu Qing Huang cleared her throat and turned to look at him. "I teased you too hard just now. I blame myself very much. In order to compensate you, I think I'll be nicer to you." "Better?" Fukang looked at her silently, with suspicion in his eyes, as if he was doubting the authenticity of the sentence. Chu Qing Huang laughed again and couldn't help but lower her head and kiss him. "Fukang, you are such a treasure. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 403. The night finally passed peacefully. The next morning, before dawn, Yuan Bao stood in the outer hall and asked for instructions. "Your Majesty, do you want to get up?" Fukang opened his eyes and frowned. "I will sleep a little longer." Chu Qing Huang said. "I will wake up after a stick of incense." "Yes." Yuan Bao accepted the order. "I will order people to prepare now. The royal rules are cumbersome. There are many maids waiting for His Majesty to stand up. They are responsible for combing hair, carrying water for washing, changing clothes, incense, and matching jewelry. There is no room for error in every step. The palace attendants on duty need to be ready before His Majesty rises, and wait respectfully outside the palace, waiting for His Majesty's call." Chu Qing Huang stared at Fukang quietly for a moment, unhappy. Fukang shook his head. "No. Because of Yuan Bao." Fukang stood up and knelt down. "This subordinate deserves to die." "It doesn't matter, I allow you to be jealous." Chu Qing Huang smiled lightly, "but you don't need to care about his existence. Yuan Bao is smart. With him by your side, many things will be easier to do." Fukang was silent for a moment. "I'm not jealous." Chu Qing Huang. "My subordinates just feel that it is too hard for the master to get up early every day to go to court and endure the ministers talking a lot of nonsense." Chu Qing Huang hummed. "It's okay to work harder. Do you think the emperor is so easy to do? Only a foolish king will not work hard and only indulge in pleasure every day. A wise king knows that he has a great responsibility in the world and cannot tolerate laziness in politics. This subordinate will definitely assist the master in the future so that the master will not have to work so hard." Chu Qing Huang's voice was light, with a bit of a smile. "Yes. Subordinate, go and wait outside." Fukang knew the rules. After the master ascended the throne, his status was no longer the same as before in the princess mansion, so he could not mess around, so he took the initiative to get out of bed. "Subordinate, do you want to go to court with the master later?" Chu Qing Huang thought for a moment. "No, you can go to the imperial study room to wait for me, or you can do your own thing." "Yes." Not long after, Yuan Bao came in again and asked for permission. After receiving permission, the palace people filed in, each holding a basin or tray, water, towels, clothes to wear, accessories. "Your Majesty," a female official came in, holding a book in her hand. She knelt down respectfully to say hello. "May I ask the name of the nobleman who slept with you last night? Does your Majesty want to be canonized?" As soon as these words came out, The hall suddenly became quiet. Fukang was about to walk out when he heard the words and stopped. He turned to look at the kneeling female officer, and then his eyes fell on Chu Qinghuang's face. "Who asked you to come here?" Chu Qinghuang asked calmly as the palace servants helped him change clothes. "Yuanbao." Chu Qinghuang looked at Yuanbao silently, and was so frightened that Yuanbao knelt down with a plop. Your Majesty, this is the rule, slave, 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 also follow the palace rules. He was not a sleeping attendant last night and does not need to be registered, Chu Qinghuang said. He is my shadow guard. He stayed here last night to report on the mission. You can leave first. The female officer nodded. Yes, I will leave. In the future, you are not allowed to make your own decisions without my consent. Chu Qinghuang glanced at Yuan Bao, frowned and warned, next time, you will go to work in the clothing bureau. Yes, Yuan Bao breathed a sigh of relief, and then couldn't help but mutter. He thought that His Majesty was finally willing to keep someone to sleep with him, but he didn't expect that he was overthinking it again. It was almost a disaster. The matter passed quickly. After Chu Qinghuang changed her clothes, washed and dressed neatly, she headed to the upper court hall surrounded by palace people. As soon as he sat down on the dragon chair, after all the civil and military officials kowtowed and bowed, someone shouted loudly, Your Majesty, I want to impeach Prince Rong and the 3 young masters of Prince Rong's palace for their improper conduct. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 404. Prince Rong was secretly surprised. He had never expected that someone would impeach him as soon as he came on stage. And his 3 sons were impeached? Why? Could it be that Her Majesty was planning to take action against Prince Rong's mansion? Chu Qinghuang sat on the dragon chair without saying a word, looking at the passionate censors, and then at the confused Prince Rong. After a moment, he cleared his throat. What does Lord Yan want to impeach Prince Rong for? I impeach Prince Rong for not educating his son properly and allowing his son to step into the place of fireworks, Lord Yan said righteously. Last night, the son of the Chu family openly competed for the most beautiful woman in Lanyu Pavilion. Not only was his personal morality corrupted, he read the books of sages in vain, but he was also lawless and trampled on the dignity of the royal family. I beg your Majesty to make a judgment. Prince Rong frowned, turned his head, and looked at Lord Yan with displeasure. It's just nonsense. It's made up. It's slanderous. The newly appointed imperial censor Yan did not give in at all. Someone saw with their own eyes last night that the son of Prince Rong was hanging out in Lanyu Pavilion, competing with others for the most beautiful woman. What nonsense, Prince Rong rebuked coldly. Xianyu was on duty in the palace last night, accompanying His Majesty. The second son Xianci was working in the imperial study, and the youngest son Xianyu was a bit of a jerk before, but he has now turned over a new leaf and is now training in the military camp. He can only go home once every 2 months. How could he possibly set foot in a brothel? Lord Yan must be dazzled. Standing beside Her Majesty, Yuan Bao lowered his head, looked at his toes, and tried to reduce his presence, although in the eyes of the civil and military officials in the court, he didn't have much presence. But guilty people always mistakenly think that everyone is looking at them. Censor Yan said angrily, someone saw it with their own eyes. Bullshit. Prince Rong, calm down, his colleagues hurriedly advised, don't be rude in front of Her Majesty the Queen. Who did you hear that from, Lord Yan? And who saw it with their own eyes? Chu Qinghuang said lightly, I really want to know which young master of Prince Rong's mansion you are talking about. Censor Yan choked for a moment. Your Majesty, I am not sure which young master it is yet, but I guarantee with my life that the person who went to Lanyu Pavilion to compete for the warren last night was one of the 3 young masters of Prince Rong's mansion. He claimed to be a young master of Prince Rong's mansion to compete for the warren, and let Lanyu Pavilion's top player accompany him for a night. This is a fact that was set in stone. If it wasn't the young master of Prince Rong's mansion, could there be someone who dared to pretend to be a royal noble? Prince Rong heard him speak so confidently, as if he had ironclad evidence, and couldn't help but mutter in his heart, could it be that Xian Yu, the rebellious son, secretly left the barracks and went out to fool around again? But the rules in the military camp are strict. If Xian Yu really left secretly, it is impossible that he has not been discovered until now, right? The censor needs solid evidence to impeach a minister, Chu Qinghuang said in a dignified tone. Since Lord Yan is impeaching the son of Prince Rong's mansion, please put the evidence of his visit to the brothel in front of me. If I believe your one-sided words and convict Prince Rong's mansion, it would be unfair. Censor Yan said, Your Majesty, the Madam of Lanyu Pavilion and Miss Lanyu can testify. Do you mean to let the Madam of the brothel come as a witness? Chu Qinghuang's expression was deep and playful. Do you think she will come? Or, do the adults present dare to let her come as a witness? As soon as these words came out, everyone in the hall knelt down. My emperor is wise. Chu Qinghuang said calmly, I am a tolerant emperor. It is normal for men to be lustful. It is nothing wrong to visit a brothel to relax occasionally. As long as you don't forget your duties, do your own things well, don't be lazy, don't embezzle and accept bribes, and indulge yourself occasionally, I can turn a blind eye. The ministers shouted long live. But indulgence is indulgence, and once in a while is a pastime. If it happens too often, I'm afraid that the finances of the gentleman will be a little bit overwhelmed. Chu Qinghuang smiled faintly. If there is any corruption, bribery, or forming a clique for personal gain, then I can't turn a blind eye. My emperor is wise, and we dare not. Chu Qinghuang nodded, although I borrowed some silver from Dongling, all this silver must be repaid. In the future, I will arrange reliable people to keep an eye on it at any time. If any lord has money at home, you can lend me some to pay off my debts. I borrow money for the sake of the country of Ziki, and you have the obligation to do your best. The ministers shuddered. My emperor is wise. Prince Rong muttered in his heart. It is said that there is no smoke without fire. Although Chu Qinghuang did not take this matter seriously and had no intention of asking for accountability, he had to find out what was going on. If it was really Xian Yu's bastard, he would have to break his legs. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 405. The impeachment case passed by without much fanfare, and did not cause any waves, but instead frightened the ministers in the court. Did His Majesty arrange reliable people in the brothel? So they can't go to the brothel often in the future, let alone go to those places to drink and chat with other adults. If they are seen by the spies arranged by Her Majesty, they will be impeached and they will be regarded as forming a clique for personal gain. Moreover, they are rich, so it's a small matter to take out a little silver to show their sincerity. It's terrible to be considered as corruption and bribery by Her Majesty. It seems that they have to learn to cultivate their character and be good to themselves in the future. It's all Lord Yan's fault. Why impeach Prince Rong for no reason? It's as if no one has ever been to a brothel. Chu Qinghuang didn't say anything else, discussed a few more serious matters, and soon announced the withdrawal of the court. Although she became the empress, the world is still a man's world after all. The concept of men being superior to women is a deep-rooted concept for thousands of years, and men are lustful by nature. It is rare for 1 of 10 men to remain calm when a woman's arms are flirting with him. Going to a brothel is one of the favorite pastimes of men. How many of these seemingly righteous officials in the court have not been to a brothel in private? If they are really impeached, none of them can escape. As long as you grasp their weaknesses, a few words can make them shut up. After the court, Chu Qinghuang went to the imperial study. Fu Kang was there, and Wen Zhan and Yun Heng were also there. The atmosphere seemed a little subtle. Fu Kang pursed his lips and glanced at Chu Qing Huang. Wen Zhan and Yun Heng had already stood up to salute. Fu Kang was half a beat late and was about to kneel down, but he heard Chu Qing Huang say, "You two go out first." Wen Zhan. Yun Heng. Fu Kang pursed his lips and remained silent. So soon, the two officials in the imperial study respectfully saluted and left. Yuan Bao made tea and left tactfully. As he closed the door, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart that the relationship between Her Majesty and this man named Fu Kang was definitely unusual. He had clearly slept with Her Majesty last night, but Her Majesty didn't allow it to be recorded in the book. If Her Majesty didn't want this relationship to be known, why did she let him follow her? Even Master Wen and Master Yun saw it, so it shouldn't be a secret. The more Yuan Bao thought about it, the more puzzled he became. "Fu Kang, come and see me review the memorials first," Chu Qing Huang ordered. "These are also what you want to learn, is it the ink grinding club?" Fu Kang nodded. "Grind the ink first." "Yes." Chu Qing Huang walked to the back of the imperial desk and sat down, taking the memorials to review. "You stay with me for the next 2 days, you can read the memorials submitted by the ministers, learn to think and consider how to deal with major national affairs, how to arrange the livelihood of the people, how to deal with corrupt officials, how to treat loyal and treacherous ministers. Once you have a basic understanding, you can take power more easily when you return to Yan country in the future." Fu Kang's expression was slightly restrained. "I don't want to stay in Yan country." "I didn't ask you to stay there for a long time." Chu Qing Huang glanced at him, "but you still have to learn what you should learn. You must have the skills to control the overall situation, have a meticulous and silent mind, be able to go out of the hall during the day, and climb onto the dragon bed at night." Fu Kang was stunned, then his ears blushed, and he lowered his head silently. The master was teasing him again. Although he likes the feeling of being teased by his master, but this is the imperial study, it seems a bit inappropriate. Living in the palace is different from before. There is a price to pay for climbing the dragon bed. Chu Qing Huang said calmly, "I am the emperor. If I want to tease you, you have to let me tease you obediently, understand?" Fu Kang pursed his lips and nodded gently, "Yes." Thinking of last night, a wave of heat rushed to his head, and he couldn't help blushing. "Your body, your heart, your loyalty, everything about you, belongs to me," Chu Qing Huang said. "I can do whatever I want to you, you have no room to resist." Fu Kang still nodded, "Yeah. I felt good last night." Chu Qing Huang coughed lightly, "Let's continue tonight." Fu Kang's face froze, and the blush spread from his face to his neck. After a moment, he nodded slightly, "Yeah. There are too many men in the court. I am considering whether to allow women to enter the official career openly." Chu Qing Huang frowned slightly. "Although it is a bit difficult, things are in the hands of people. Now we should strike while the iron is hot and make some reforms." Fu Kang was silent for a moment, and the heat on his face slowly subsided. "Master is wise." Chu Qing Huang turned his head to look at him, his eyes fixed. "Fu Kang." Fu Kang raised his eyes nervously. "Master. You are so cute." Fu Kang. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 406. Yuan Bao found that his eunuch was useless. He is obviously the personal eunuch appointed by His Majesty. He is responsible for refilling tea and water, serving His Majesty, greeting His Majesty, and conveying orders, but since Mr. Fukang came to His Majesty, he seemed to have completely disappeared into thin air. Fukang is responsible for making tea. Fukang is responsible for pouring water. Fukang is responsible for changing clothes. Studying ink, Fukang is responsible. Waiting for the bed, well, Fukang is still responsible. In the night breeze, Yuan Bao stood outside the palace, looking at the stars in the sky melancholy, wondering to himself if he was going to fall out of favor. What is your Majesty's attitude towards this Fukang? If you want to serve the king, you should at least be given a title. If you don't want to be given a status, but you still want someone to serve you closely, is it possible? Yuan Bao's heart sank. Could it be that His Majesty wanted Fukang to take his place? But Fukang doesn't look like he's been castrated. He also wants to work well by His Majesty's side and one day be able to work as a general manager. If this continues, he seems to be far away from becoming a general manager. Yuan Bao sighed sadly. Her Majesty the Queen's thoughts were really hard to figure out. In the inner hall of the palace, after bathing, Fukang was wearing a white pajamas and knelt on the dragon bed, giving Chu Qinghuang a detailed massage from her shoulders and neck to her lower back. Chu Qinghuang was lying on the bed, not seeing her little. No matter how docile the wolf cub looked, there was no deep affection in his eyes. But even if she didn't see it, she knew that the little wolf cub would be devoted to her for the rest of his life and would not change his mind until death. Fukang. Master. How long did your father give you? 3 months. Chu Qinghuang frowned. 3 months. Yes. Are you going down the mountain on the 8th day of June? Yes. It's been a month. Fukang nodded, yes. Chu Qinghuang was silent for a moment, frowned and said, there are still 2 months, can you complete the task? Yes. Fukang nodded slowly, with no hesitation in his tone, as if he was confident. Before coming to the imperial city, my subordinates have found out Wei Hong's details clearly, and I will stay here to deal with him. In a few days, when Duan Muyu gets the money, he will get rid of Wei Hong, and then restrain Duan Muyu and let him stay in Ziki temporarily, and no one can stop his subordinates from going to Yan country. Chu Qinghuang hummed, it turns out that I had already planned it in my heart. Fukang nodded, Master, don't worry, my subordinates will not delay the business. Okay. Chu Qinghuang sighed, so you can only stay with me for a few days. Fukang pursed his lips, this subordinate will complete the task as soon as possible. Don't be anxious. Chu Qinghuang was pressed comfortably by him, and his voice sounded a little lazier. When you go on a mission for the first time, you must ensure that everything is flawless. Controlling the overall situation is second, and saving your own life is the most important, so time counts. No need to be too compact. After a pause, anyway, there will be plenty of time in the future, so there is no rush now. Fukang responded, and put his hands down from his shoulders to his waist. Through a thin layer of pajamas, the feeling in his palms made him feel a little confused. His hands were ready to grasp the slender waist. What are you doing? Fukang was startled and quickly let go. Then he realized that his reaction was a little too big and he hesitated. The master's waist is very thin. Subordinate, I just want to measure it. Measure with your hands. Yes. Fukang felt a little guilty, but nodded calmly. His handsome face began to turn red. Didn't the master say, to continue tonight? Continue with what? Fukang was speechless and lowered his head. It's nothing. Chu Qinghuang raised her lips, turned over and sat up neatly. Continue to tease you. Fukang remained silent, only feeling the heat starting to rush to his face again. Why don't you say anything? Chu Qinghuang lifted his chin and looked into his eyes with burning eyes. You are so looking forward to being teased by me. Fukang weakly shook his head. No. I think so. Chu Qinghuang's slender fingers went down, slowly caressing his collarbone, and then down. Her slender hands reached under his clothes irregularly. I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it. The soft fingers seemed to have magic power, causing a tingling sensation, and Fu Kang immediately tensed up. Look, just say you can't bear it. Chu Ching Huan clicked his tongue and took back his hand. I won't tease you anymore. Go to bed early. When the time comes, I will definitely let you experience flying into the clouds taste. Fu Kang narrowed his eyes, not knowing whether he was relieved or slightly disappointed. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbs feed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 407. As the queen's birthday approaches, the palace begins to get busy. In the early morning of July 9, before dawn, Fu Kang returned to Lanyu Pavilion. For the past 2 days, Duan Muyu and Wei Hong have been waiting for the opportunity in room 1 of Lanyu Pavilion. They paid a lot of money to book this room. Duan Muyu had been trapped in Dongling for several months before, and later he learned to be smart and would not show up if he could, especially after becoming the emperor. He cherished his life very much, and his ambition remained the same, but he had learned to be patient. Just like Chu Ching Huang before, she went to Dongling quietly and returned to Ziki quietly. The news was kept secret, leaving Duan Muyu and Wei Hong empty-handed. If she could get rid of her in Dongling at the beginning, why would she spend another 6 million taels of silver to hire a killer? Duan Muyu felt that this method was very suitable for him. If he showed up, he would be in danger and Queen Dongling would be on guard. At that time, the assassination plan would be difficult to succeed, so he thought it was okay to wait for 2 days. The transaction required silver. If the 3,020,000 silver were transported all at once, it would be too eye-catching. Duan Muyu asked his trusted men to disguise themselves as merchants and put more than 10 loads in the simplest boxes, and transported them in batches to a bank in the city. In order to avoid suspicion, the people who escorted the silver disguised their identities, so that even if they were checked, they would have ways to deal with it. It was Fu Kang's request to complete the handover in the bank because he wanted to exchange the silver directly into silver bills. The bank was fair and did not worry about being falsified. If the silver was adulterated, it could be identified in time. Duan Muyu and Wei Hong had no objection to this. The silver bills in Beijiang and Ziki actually have something in common, especially the silver bills from the same bill number, which all have their own marks, but Fu Kang directly refused the silver bill transaction on the grounds that he did not want to take risks. He wanted to see the cash. Duan Muyu knew that the more powerful the killer, the weirder his temper and the bigger the rules, so he did not argue with him much and cooperated with him to do what he said. 1 month was enough time to prepare the silver and transport it. The money should be all here tonight. Duan Muyu took a sip of tea. How many days will it take to complete the assassination plan? Today is the 9th day of the first lunar month, and the Queen's birthday is on the 12th. Miss Lan Yu sat behind a table, wearing a long red satin dress that made her look stunning and charming. If nothing unexpected happens, the plan can be completed before July 13th at the latest. Duan Muyu's eyes fell on her face. What if something unexpected happens? It's impossible for an accident to happen, Lan Yu said firmly. If an accident really happens, the Ghost Festival on July 15th is a good day to bury myself. I will give you an explanation. Does this mean that if the mission is not completed, you will commit suicide to apologize? Previously, Xie Dao just said that he would retire, but today he changed his words to commit suicide to apologize. It seems that he is really sure. Duan Muyu and Wei Hong looked at each other in silence and nodded calmly. Okay, Wei Hong said, let's go to the handover tonight. As he said that, he looked at Lan Yu's clothes. Miss Lan Yu, Don't you dress up tonight? Lan Yu said, don't worry about it. Wei Hong was choked and said in a bad tone, I just think you look too eye-catching, so I'm just kindly reminding you. I said, don't worry about it. Lan Yu glanced at him coldly, we are just a cooperative relationship, you have no right to dictate my behavior. Wei Hong was angry, you dash. Enough. Duan Yu frowned, it's time, and you are still arguing about some trivial things here. Wei Hong's expression was gloomy, and he looked at Lan Yu with displeasure. A killer who was paid to do things dared to have such a big temper? Lan Yu stood up, I have something to do, sorry I can't keep you company. Miss Lan Yu. Duan Yu raised his eyes, although there are rules in the assassin business, some rules can be followed, and some rules can be flexible. Lan Yu looked at him expressionlessly, what do you want to say? I hope the plan is foolproof, and I hope Miss Lan Yu can earn 6 million taels of silver intact, he said lightly, as long as Miss Lan Yu is still alive, I believe the mission can be completed. Lan Yu stared at him for a while without saying a word, and nodded slowly, you are right, so unless I go to see the King of Hell in advance, this mission must be completed. Duan Yu nodded, that's exactly what I mean. Lan Yu didn't say anything, and turned around and left. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 408. Lan Yu returned to her room and changed into a normal dress. Her makeup remained the same, her hairpins were removed, and her hair was neatly tied up. At first glance, she looked like a woman dressed as a man. Arrived at Nanji Bank in the evening. 3 million taels of silver was too much. It was almost the first time that Nanji Bank had received such a large-scale guest in all these years. It took 2 hours just to count the silver. Duan Yu and Lan Yu sat aside and drank tea, watching the guys in the bank count the money. After the amount was confirmed in the ticket office and the deposit procedures were completed, the ticket office owner issued a note for a deposit of 3 million taels of silver and handed it to Lan Yu respectfully, Miss, 3 million taels of silver is too much. The ticket office cannot take out so many large denomination silver notes at the moment. I will issue a note first. Please keep it. I will prepare the silver notes within 3 days and personally deliver them to you. Lan Yu turned to look at Duan Yu, do I look like a girl? Duan Yu glanced at him, a little bit. Although he changed his clothes and took off his headdress, the makeup on his face was not washed off. It was indeed Lan Yu's face. Lan Yu said nothing and put away the bill, I will come to pick it up in 3 days. Okay, I will be waiting for you, young lady. The two stood up and left Nanji ticket office. Duan Yu said, our transaction will take effect from now on. Yes. Miss Lan Yu will not regret it? Lan Yu shook the bill in her hand, the silver is in hand, why should I regret it? I wish Miss Lan Yu a successful strike, and the remaining 3 million taels will be presented as promised. Lan Yu said nothing, and took advantage of the night to go back to Lan Yu Pavilion. The pavilion was full of singing and dancing. After returning to the room to wash off her makeup, she restored her original appearance, changed her clothes, and left Fukang through the back window, disappearing into the dark night. 3 more days at most. Wei Hong's eyes were sharp, his voice was cold and gloomy, once Chu Qinghuang dies, Ziki will be overturned. She is your biological sister. Duan Yu drank a sip of strong tea, obviously not going to sleep tonight, do you really not care about family affection at all? Sister, Wei Hong sneered, how has she ever had family affection for her mother and brother? Duan Yu said, the regent of Dongling is her adoptive father, and the emperor of Dongling is her adoptive brother. Don't you want to get close to this relationship? Is the emperor testing me? Wei Hong frowned, the plan has already been implemented, don't you think it's too late to test it now? Duan Yu just smiled and said nothing. Dongling is a long way from Ziki, so what if we have this relationship? Far water cannot quench a nearby fire. As long as we are fast enough, the Emperor of Dongling cannot stop me from controlling Ziki. As long as Chu Qinghuang is killed, the army will be at the gates of the city, and the royal family of Ziki will willingly surrender. Then, we will give them some benefits, and we will not worry about not being able to control Ziki. When the news reaches Dongling, let alone whether they will send troops from afar to interfere, even if they really have this idea, the army will travel a long distance and the horses will be tired, so they have nothing to fear. Wei Hung lowered his eyes to hide the emotions in his eyes. Yan country is too small and has been controlled by Beijiang for decades. He has no say, so he has nothing to cherish about the prince's position. He knows exactly what Duan Muyu is thinking, but he will not let him succeed. He is the blood of the royal family of Ziki, and it is natural for him to take back what belongs to him. As long as he holds the power of Ziki, it is only a matter of time before he breaks away from Beijiang's control. Wei Hung thought so in his heart, and slowly tightened the wine cup in his hand. My 13th princess will be your queen in the future. Duan Muyu's eyes were heavy. Don't forget that Beijiang and Yan Kingdom will always be one family. Wei Hung came back to his senses, his face calm as usual. Your Majesty, don't worry, not only Beijiang and Yan Kingdom are one family, Beijiang and Ziki will also become a close family in the future. Window. Tabula equals window. Tabula. Tabula.push, mode, thumbspeed -01, container, tabula below article thumbnail -300x250, placement, below article thumbnail -300x250, target. Type, mix. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 409. Did you get 3 million taels of silver? In the dead of night, Chu Qinghuang's voice was a little gentler and more approachable than during the day. Fukang hummed, his expression obviously a little more happy. It has been deposited into the Nanji ticket number. Not bad. Chu Qinghuang touched his head with a hint of doting. The dowry money came so quickly. Fukang's voice was gentle. We are still short of 2 million taels. It doesn't matter. When you take over the power of the Yan Kingdom, won't you be able to capture 2 million taels? Chu Qinghuang said thoughtfully. Being an assassin can make money very quickly. Do you want to consider creating a killer pavilion? Fukang frowned. Actually, it's not fast either. The life of the king of a country is indeed more valuable, but the risk is very high. If the opponent is determined to kill, he will be willing to give it a try even if he spends all the treasury. Fukang explained, but the lives of other people are not so it's valuable. If you assassinate a court official, you will be charged according to the official's grade and the difficulty of the assassination. It can range from a few hundred taels to a few thousand taels. Compared with millions of taels, it's just a drop in the bucket. When Chu Qinghuang heard this, he nodded clearly. That's right. Those who can afford to assassinate the king of a country must be a person of high status. Just like the current emperor of northern Xinjiang, if he can really succeed by spending all the power of the treasury, it will be cost-effective for him. But ordinary people, not to mention whether they have the courage and necessity to assassinate the king of a country, even if they do, who can get so much money and take the risk of confiscating their homes and exterminating their clans? Of all the countries in the world, only northern Xinjiang is still ambitious. The emperor of Zhou is the master's nephew. Shu and Dongling have a friendly relationship. Emperor Dongling is the senior brother of his subordinates and the elder brother of his master. The emperor of 11 Qi is his master. Except for the emperor of northern Xinjiang, no one can touch his head, so even if it is valuable, such a large-scale business can only be accepted once. Chu Qinghuang thought of what she heard before and raised her eyebrows. Don't you think it's a pity that Emperor Dongling's head is valuable but cannot be moved? Fukang shook his head quickly. I don't have any. With your skills and my level of trust in you, there shouldn't be any problem in taking my head, Chu Qing Huang said calmly. 6 million taels is an astronomical sum. Are you not tempted at all? Fuekang looked at her aggrievedly. It's useless for me to ask for so much money. How can money be compared with the masters? Who said it's useless? Chu Qing Huang looked calm. 6 million taels can buy a large family property, marry a wife and at least 18 concubines, give birth to many children, and even beg for money. Work as an official, or buy a remote city, and live in a corner from now on, enjoying the joy of having children and grandchildren around you. This is the most fulfilling and happy thing in life. Fuekang was silent for a moment, pursed his lips and said, I don't want a concubine with 18 rooms, nor do I want many children. I want to be with my master. Well, 2 children are enough. 2 children, Chu Qing Huang smiled faintly. Are you responsible for the birth? Fuekang choked and hesitated. If a man can have children, my subordinates will also be willing to do so. Chu Qing Huang. Fuekang raised his eyes and said, Subordinate, please press your master's buttons. Chu Qing Huang said, if you accept a concubine with 18 rooms, someone will take turns to serve you every night, so you don't need to serve others here. My master is no one else. I like to serve my master, Fuekang said in a good tone. I don't like my 18-bedroom concubine. Chu Qing Huang raised her hand and grabbed his ear. You always like to refute my words lately. Fuekang grabbed her hand, put it to his lips and kissed her one by one. I know my mistake, master. Do you want to punish me? His attitude was very obedient and docile, but his voice was a little more bewitching. Especially when combined with his actions of kissing her fingers, it became even more alluring. Chu Qing Huang didn't expect that he would learn so quickly. His fingers were itchy after being kissed by him. She raised her other hand and patted his head. No nonsense, I have something serious to tell you. Fuekang was silent for a moment, then obediently let go of her hand. The first seduction plan failed. The king of Yan Kingdom, your biological father, is actually one of our own. Well? Fuekang was surprised. One of our own? Isn't Yan state a vassal state of northern Xinjiang? It's a long story, but after you go back, you can be honest with the king of Yan state and tell me the name of my father or Dongling Xie's chief minister. He will cooperate with you in all your plans, Chu Qing Huang said. Back then, for him to successfully take the position of king, Dongling's help is indispensable. As long as the monarch cooperates, Fuekang's restoration as a prince will be much smoother, and the life of Wei Hung, the fake prince, left in Ziki will become irrelevant. Fuekang pondered. In that case, Duan Muyu is not suspicious. Uncle Xie is as cunning as a fox, so he naturally has a way to avoid suspicion. Fuekang hummed, indicating that he understood. Since Duan Muyu has come to Ziki, I will restrain him for the time being. After you go back, you can let go and do whatever you want without any scruples, Chu Qing Huang said, rubbing his head. I am waiting to marry you as my royal husband. Fuekang was silent after hearing the words, his heart filled with joy, and his eyes were as bright as stars. Yes. After the divorce, the princess was forced to raise a sickly villain. Author, Nan Huang. Chapter 410. The days passed quickly in the busy life, and it was July 12th in a blink of an eye. The palace banquet was held in the imperial garden. The weather was hot in summer and the imperial garden was cooler. The breeze blew and the refreshing fragrance made people feel comfortable. As night falls, the imperial garden is dotted with stars. With the sound of Her Majesty the Queen has arrived, all the ministers, ladies in the boudoir who entered the palace to attend the banquet stood up and saluted, Your Majesty the Queen, long live my emperor. Chu Qing Huang walked up to the imperial stage and slowly sat down, no courtesy. The ministers took their seats one by one. There is a curtain between the women's seats and the men's seats, which can be regarded as separating the men and women. The royal family members were sitting near the imperial stage. Today was the queen's first birthday after she ascended the throne. Chu Tianling, Chu Tianzheng, and Chu Tianyan all attended the palace banquet. The queen mother and Princess Duan also came. The status of these two women is very embarrassing. One is as prestigious as the queen mother, but they have no honor at all. They can't even protect their own sons. The other one is clearly the biological mother of Her Majesty the Queen, and should be respected as the Queen Mother, but now she can only be sent out of the palace to live with her poor son. As the brother of the Emperor's second mother, Chu Tianzheng didn't even have a prince title until the Emperor abdicated. After Chu Qinghuang ascended the throne, he was no longer suitable to live in the prince's palace in the palace, so he was given a mansion and the title of Xian. The prince. It's really relaxing. After being granted the title of Prince of the County, he had no official position and was still like an idle prince as before. He could still rely on his mother and concubine to be favored and dominate, and the ministers and palace people were respectful to him. However, I don't know how long ago, the status of the once most favored prince plummeted, and now he has no power at all. He only relies on the salary of the county prince and the private money saved by concubine Duan, living in poverty, with a neglected family, and no one. People care about him, but his life is not as good as that of ordinary young men from aristocratic families. At this time, all the female family members looked at the Queen Mother and Princess Duan, and they didn't even know where to start their small talk. I heard that Her Majesty the Queen intends to select women to serve as officials. Someone spoke at the table, but the voice that was deliberately lowered showed a bit of excitement. Her Majesty the Queen is really powerful, she dares to do things that others dare not do, and dares to think that ordinary people dare not think. Concubine Duan clutched the wine cup with a gloomy expression. Women's status is low, so it's not easy to become an official. Another daughter from a noble family frowned. For so many years, men have been superior to women. If your Majesty really has such an idea, the ministers in the court will definitely oppose it. Everything is difficult at the beginning. As long as you have such an idea, you are not afraid of failing. The woman who spoke first smiled lightly. Before Her Majesty the Queen ascended the throne, who would have thought that Ziki would be ruled by a queen? As soon as these words came out, the other legitimate daughters of the aristocratic families nodded. Yes, no one would have thought that the former eldest princess would actually take the position of queen. Her Majesty the Queen is as powerful and courageous as any man. She is a rare and rare woman in thousands of years. Haven't there been rumors before? It is said that Her Majesty the Queen is the destined emperor and should sit on this throne. So as long as Her Majesty the Queen wants to select women to serve as officials, she can definitely do it. Concubine Duan listened to everyone's words, and her words were full of admiration for Chu Qinghuang. It was completely opposite to the disdain towards Chu Qinghuang when the noble ladies gathered together before, and her expression became gloomier little by little. Just at this time, a eunuch on the imperial stage shouted in a high voice, "Let's sing and dance." The palace dancers came one after another on lotus steps. With light steps, graceful figures, and beautiful dance clothes, they bent their waists, and their exquisite water sleeves brought out their graceful dance postures. The dancers danced gracefully.